I want to talk about culture and why it's become a huge part of my way of amazing and changing and helping people in the world and organizations. Um, I'm super aware of the neurotic limitations and blind spots of Harvard faculty, MIT faculty, Stanford faculty. I'm super aware of the five common cultures of business: male culture, monkey hierarchy culture, chasing money capitalism culture, American culture, and technology culture. Uh, I, where in my life did this come from? And I grew up in Virginia, and you're raised in a British patrician slave owner mentality in Richmond, Virginia. And so you got this British thing and these mansions and Magnolia and Cotillion and dance and ballroom dancing once a month and coming out parties at country clubs. And in high school, it was just natural for me to take public speaking lessons because that's what young men who are brought out into society are supposed to be good at. It's British culture in a way. Then, just like British elites, I spent a lot of time studying Latin and reading Cicero and Seneca and the skeptics and the uh, other Roman philosophers. And I really got into that ancient world, the Edith Hamilton's Greek mythology and Roman mythology and the Iliad, the Odyssey. Got into the classical thought. I really, got into how people in Greece 2,500 years ago wrote and taught each other and thought about the world and its role as a foundation of Western tradition. And the part that I didn't get, and then I got this Christianity of the orange juice variety. I call it orange juice Christianity, where young kids go to church and the only reason they go is because they get free orange juice because the ideas are so stupid. I mean, there's no other word for it. Some 2,000-year-old book is the way to live life today. Now that you've got to be dumb if you think you can follow what some 2,000-page book says and end up non-stupid. Um, I mean, even following one book 2,000 years ago was pretty arrogant and stupid, and then following it 2,000 years later is just you have to be so hopelessly moronic that nothing can make your life good and protect your children from your parental idiocy. So, Christianity was orange juice for me, and but I knew it was a culture. Now, I didn't learn the culture of Christianity until much later as an MIT undergraduate, when I had a breakthrough course in the Bible as literature, where I really was astonished to realize that the Bible was written by four people, not one, that there was huge political fights over what to put in the Bible, and all the books that gave you a direct route to God without priests as an intermediary were eliminated. And then by 300, 400 AD, the only books left in the Bible were ones that made you dependent on priests to get to heaven. It was just such an obvious power play. And then all these little hocus pocus theology to justify it, dividing God into two parts, and then dividing God into three parts, and then dividing God into seven parts. If Christianity had lacked political power in the Roman Empire for another 200 years, and so had power only at 470 instead of at 270, then God would have been divided by then into seven or eight parts. I mean, they were just outside of society, no power, a sect trying to correct the flaws in Roman culture. And if you look at Christianity, everything in Christianity is simply a correction of one of the excesses of Roman culture. That's all. So if in the year 2000, what your personal problem is you're suffering from excesses of ancient Roman culture, then Christianity is going to really help you a lot. However, if you've got more contemporary problems, it's going to be the most humorous, misfitting pile of crap. Do what corrected Roman culture flaws 2,000 years ago, and that'll help you today, even though you're not Roman and it's not 2,000 years ago, and you don't have the same challenges or weaknesses they have. So I was sensitive to the English British culture I grew up in. It wasn't normally American. I knew that it was too English. Virginia was too English and not really American enough. Then I became gradually in high school aware of the white black thing and the fact that every white person I knew was uneducated, grumpy, and then used to dump on black people as a way to make their miserable little white lives feel superior to something. And it was such an obvious tactic of socially, mentally inferior people just looking for somebody below them to make them feel satisfied with themselves. It was so clear that the white people in Virginia were ugly, dumb, uneducated people, and they used black people as a scapegoat for their own laziness. And and then I had this revelation. My sister urged me to go to Cotillion, not Cotillion, what is it called? Something Gardens in downtown Richmond, Virginia, a dance hall where they had musical shows. And Smokey Robinson and the Miracles was playing and in town, and my sister had gone, really recommended me to go. And I went early, as I always do, and I didn't realize that one show, the early show's for the white people, and the second show's for the blacks, so I got tickets to the second show. But I arrived early, so I saw the last 20 minutes of the white show while I was standing in the hall. And you would have Smokey Robinson doing his thing, and then at the end of a number, the white people would go, "Oh, very nice, very nice." And then he'd do another thing, and then at the end, the little white people would move their little hands and go, "Oh, very nice, very nice." And then the black show came 20 minutes later, and people were dancing in the aisles and shouting and singing along with the words and moving their body, and it was a power. And I realized, my God, I had been raised for 18 years with these white, sexless wimps all around me. And it explained my father to me and my mother to me and why they took tranquilizers and everything. And here you had these people with 1/10 the income with no tranquilizers because they were able to express themselves and knew what their feelings were instead of being shocked by feelings in their little white brains. Oh, I have a feeling. Oh, God, give me a pill, give me a pill, give me a pill. I don't know. So I realized that I had grown up in a sick, white, slave-owning British Virginia culture, and that, to tell you the truth, it was a lot more painful than what I'm portraying for you. My dad was a military guy, 7 years in the Navy, 7 years in the Army. He was a tyrant and a psychological moron, and he intended to raise us well. He always had good intentions, but his results were horrible, and he destroyed my sister in some ways. And a psychiatrist at MIT was very helpful to me. She said, "Well, you've got to." I said, "How do I judge him? By his intention or by his results?" And she said, "You've got to all through your life, you've got to judge results, and you don't get off the hook because you mean well and you do harm. You've got to judge people by the harm that they do or the benefit they do, and not by their intention. And so you need to protect yourself," she said, "from your father's ignorance and the fact that Navy Army culture made him psychologically a stunted moron. A well-intentioned man with a very good brain, very smart guy, but founded 3 venture mini mill steel companies and almost made the second one work well. Disaster by his partner caused them to have to sell out. Um, so I grew up in that messy cultural thing, and I remember counting 12 years to go before college when I would be liberated from my stupid parents and the stupid Virginia society I had unfortunately been placed in as a newly born baby without any choice of where to be born. And but I knew I had 12 years left, and I counted 11 years left, 10 years left. I remember counting each year down. And because college was where I could escape the ugliness of my parents, the ugliness of the military and my father, the ugliness of Virginia and the slave-owning, lazy white people around me, the ugliness of their sexless bodies and way of living, their ugliness of their little Descartian minds they're so afraid of, and I'm used to dealing with feelings. I would escape that at college. I didn't realize I'd go to a famous college, but I ended up going to Boston, a famous college. And boy, I converted to that religion right there. I got on Boston and I said, everybody I have met at MIT is a hell of a lot nicer, more decent, more global, more caring, more sensitive, better educated, better read, more capable person than everybody I met in Virginia. It was really heaven. It was a cultural liberation. That lasted about 6 months, and then I realized that MIT celebrates suicides of its students, that there's this super hormonal, testicle-type male culture on campus, that the faculty are weaker, far weaker than Stanford faculty because they hide behind math, and they do it in a cowardly way. When they can't think, they'll put an equation on the board. You ask them a good question, and if they can think, they'll tell you the answer. And if they can't think, they'll go put an equation on the board because they themselves have no idea. They use math to hide the fact from themselves they don't know what the hell they're doing. And the 2008 financial crisis has amply confirmed they don't know what the hell they're doing. So, here was this male hormone. And I went to Wellesley, an all-girls school with a very different female culture. I'd never been in my life in a totally female cultural environment before. It was very interesting. It was very mentally difficult work that they did in literature. Very difficult kinds of thinking and writing that no MIT guy could compete with. And they were doing it in the hundreds at Wellesley. And their professors were really challenging with real decent standards. And so I found that the courses at Wellesley were as mentally tough or more mentally tough, a lot harder than math was for me because I was really good at math. And so that was a cultural change experience. And then, I knew being in one nation was a real limitation. So as soon as I was at the end of MIT, I needed to get out of MIT in two ways. Number one, I needed a hugely social NGO, nonprofit, fundraising, meeting the best people in the world job, which I got, to get me social skill, which I didn't have as an MIT male. And then number two, I needed to get out of the United States of America, which I ended up going to Japan at the recommendation of Houston Smith, to get away from American culture and its manias. And then, I'll have to do another video on the implications and the results of all of that.